All right, we are on to part 2 of lesson 68. First thing we need to do is get our heading on, name, number, date, first and last in cursive. Remember to write the date you are working on these notes, not necessarily the date I am writing. My number is pi, and the subject is math. Okay, so here, sorry, a little too far. Describe the diagram using geometric terms. So it is straight, no curves, no angles there. Continues forever in opposite directions. So it's straight, and I know it continues forever. That's what the arrows are telling me, that each side of this straight diagram is going to continue forever. I could put a straight edge up and have it continue across the paper if I needed to, because that's where it would go. But because we don't want to spend our time drawing a line, we put the arrows on to show that it will continue if need be. So that means this is a line. That's the best name for that diagram. Here it is straight, the diagram. No curves. Must be straight. 2 endpoints. So it's straight and it has 2 endpoints. So that would be a line segment. If it doesn't have the arrows on the end to show that it continues forever, if it has endpoints, it's a segment. It's just a piece of a line, a bigger line that goes on forever. We're just looking, like we just took off this part of the line here to look at. The rest continues on forever. We're just looking at the piece that doesn't. Okay, here, this one is straight. And the arrows tell me they continue. Continues forever in opposite directions. So that is a line. So the biggest difference is that we have arrows showing they go forever or endpoints. If they have endpoints, they're a segment, they're a piece of a line. If they have arrows, they continue forever and are a line. All right, now we're going to be naming lines, rays, and line segments. To name a line, usually we use 2 points. So I'm going to show you just different ways you can name a line. First line we're going to look at is this one right here. That goes on forever. So that one I'm going to call line 1. And if you notice, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 points on it. So I could use the last two, the 2 farthest ones. I could call that AB. I can't use just A or just B. That's not enough information. I can also switch them, BA. When it's a line, the order doesn't matter because both ends continue forever. They're not endpoints. I could call it AE, EA, because those are both on that line. I could call it AF or FA, because they're both on that line. I could call it EF or FE. I could call it EB, just any two lines. BE. I could call it FB or BF. So that's just one line. These are all different ones that you could use. But if you notice, they're all on the same line. So it doesn't matter which two you pick two, and that would be enough information. One is not. So you just pick two letters, and then to know it's a line, we actually would take, so I'm going to just pick the first one. Because these are notes, I want you to have an example of all the different ways. And to know it's a line, I actually draw a line right above it. You do not have to draw a straight edge though. You don't have to use a straight edge to draw that when you're labeling a line. When I put that line on top, I know I actually read this as line AB. Otherwise, if it's just the two letters, it's talking about the distance between those two, and it has a different meaning. So we have to use that line on top so we know it's a line. Not a line segment, not a line rate, and not a distance. I'm going to pick another one. Let's look at this one right here. So we could use CD or DC because they're on the same line. We can use CE or EC, and we could use ED or DE. Always capital letters. Not as many options as here because we had only 3 points on that line. But still, we just need to pick one of them. I'll pick the first one. And then we put the line on top to show that it's line CD. Okay, another line could be this one right here because it has those arrows on the end. So LE or EL. Okay, so I'll just go with the first one. We put a line on top to show that it's line LE. And just to get it in our notes, the last line that's on here, FG or GF. So two letters make a line, and to know that it's a line, we put the line on top of it. Line AB, line CD, line LE. We had 4 to choose from. We only needed 3. And there's a lot of different ways to choose it. So your letters could be in a different order, or like this one, you could have chosen different letters, but they have to be 2 that are on that line, and they do have to have a line on top. All right, here we're naming 3 different rays. Now, rays are different because you always have to have the endpoint listed first. So a ray that I see with E as an endpoint and continues out forever this way, because it has one endpoint and one arrow, would be, so ray 1 would be EL. I cannot have it as LE because this is not the endpoint. This one is. That would be a different ray. So for this ray, again, 2 letters. 1 letter is not enough. That just tells me a point. I need 2 letters to tell me either a line or a ray. And with the ray, the endpoint has to come first. Line, it doesn't matter. Another ray. I could have E as the endpoint, and continuing out forever this way would be then EC. Another ray could go from the endpoint E and down this way, would be E, D. You could have L be an endpoint and E be the continuation for it this way. But again, that's a different ray. It's going in a different direction, different endpoint. I'm not going to get all of them down, but just to show you quite a few of them. I also have E, A. All of these are showing endpoint E, but they go in a different direction. We have EL, EC, ED, EA. They all are going in a different direction. And the endpoint must be first. So we could have, now going this direction, we actually have two different letters. So I could call this EF, or I could call it EB. But E is my endpoint, and my arrow's on this side. So I have to have the E first, no matter what. Just to get down some more options. I could also look at this one. With F being the endpoint, I could have FB. I could have this one be the endpoint going down, FG. The endpoint has to go first. I could have F be the endpoint going this direction, so I'd actually have two choices, FE or FA. No matter what, the endpoint has to go first, EFA. I'm just going to get a few more down. These will not be all of them. I could have L be the endpoint, and it continue forever in this direction with LE. I could have C be the endpoint and go down, so I could have CE or CD. I could have G be the endpoint and have GF. I could have D be the endpoint, and then I'd have two options, DE or DC, but the endpoint would have to go first. I have lots of options here. I could have A be the endpoint, and then I would have options AE, AF, AB. But A would be the endpoint, and then I don't have room, but B could also be one. BF, BE, BA. The endpoint has to go first. So we have a lot of options here. We only need 3. So I could start with EL. And how do I know that this is a ray and not a line or the distance between those points? I actually draw a ray on top. Nothing at this end, an arrow at this end. Endpoint always has to go first. Let's have a different beginning letter. I'm going to do ray 6. Endpoint first. So this is ray FB. And then I'm just going to pick another one. I'm going to do, I'll do AE. I'm sorry, EA. the one that goes that direction. But really, we have lots and lots of different options. We have 13 different options that you could choose from. Endpoint has to go first, always 2 letters, and ray on top to name a ray. And this one just wants 2, and we're looking at line segments. Okay, we have lots of line segments, and again, 2 letters. So line, I'm going to abbreviate segment. So if I'm just looking at a piece of a line, I could look at FG or GF. I could look at this piece right here between C and E, E and C. But unlike the line, I can't include D in this because that is a different piece of the line that's bigger. We're just looking at this piece, so I can just use those 2. But a different line segment could be CD. It's a much longer segment. Or I could be looking at ED or DE. They have to be the endpoints for your segment, whichever one you're looking at. We have lots on this diagram here. We can look at EL or LE. Okay. This one has lots of different line segments. AE, AF, AB, EF, EB, FB. So I'm not going to list them all because I don't have room, but there's a lot on this line, a lot of different segments we could look at. So I'm going to look at the longest one, AB, BA. I'm going to get one more in, but there's more on this diagram than I can list. I just want you to have as many examples as possible, so when you look back at your notes, it's helpful. I could look at EF or FE. So again, we have 2 letters. How do we know these 2 letters mean a line segment, not the distance between the points, not a line, or not a ray? Well, you take the 2 letters and you just draw a line on top with no arrows, and that means line segment FG. So that's how we know it's a line segment and not a line or a ray. But you have to have something on top, otherwise we're talking about a distance. I'm going to look at CD and EL. Oh, I only needed 2. So you can erase that. This is the problem with pen. I only needed 2 line segments, but there's lots to choose from. And to know it's a segment, you draw a line on top without arrows, and that shows a line segment. All right, so now you need to do some more practice with identifying points, lines, line segments, and rays. Thank you for joining me.